going to have the lovely Pipli. I don't know whether she's on here or not. Let's have a little look-see. It's going to give us some tips on how to look after ourselves, how to care for ourselves when we're busy in my business, busy in my property, running around like blue flies. So Pipli's going to be there, and I think the gang, me, Wayne and Lee, are going to chat a little bit about goals. Have you got your goals set? Stick it in the chat box. Have you got your goals set for this year? Who wants to buy a property? Yeah, stick it in the chat. Who wants to buy a property this year? How many properties do you want to buy? What's your strategy? What's your area? Let's see it and write and make it real. Because you know all about your vision boards, don't you? We need vision boards and everything, don't we? So welcome everybody. Will everybody say hello to us? We like a little bit love, don't we, gang? Yeah, so Pipli just grabbing a glass of water. Well, that would be a glass of wine for me, but I'm on dry January, so no wine for me this time. So right. Well, I could drink dry wine, but it's still dry January, isn't it? No? Anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. And I think we'll get cracking. So I tell you what, let's have Pipli. I don't even know if that's how we pronounce her name. I've known her for about 10 years. Pipli, is that right?
Perfect. Spot on.
Yeah. Why don't you, right? We're all running around where some people's working full time, they're trying to do properly. We're very, very busy. We've got families, some of us got kids, some of us have got dogs. If you looked at my car sometimes, lots of chocolate wrappers, right? It's disgraceful. Costa coffee, Costa coffee cups, drive-through Costa coffee, chocolate bar. So it's quite disgusting. Really, and it's like, how can we, I suppose it's preparing stuff, but can you just share a couple of tips with us and actually tell us why and what it does to us? And I think you've got something sexy to give us at the end.
I have something very sexy. So yeah, I'll just start off with the reason I got into health was because I wanted to lose the weight after I had my first baby. And then once I'd lost the weight and I went back to work 4 days a week, I'd realized how much more focused I was, how much more energy I had. I got promotion within the first few weeks, and I thought, that's it. I'm not going back. And that's why I'm telling you it's worth it. It's so worth it. You don't know how good you can feel until you've been there. So go for it. Okay, so my tips are here. So the
Excellent.
first one, oh, thank you. So the first one is drink at least 2 to 3 liters of water. And the tip is just have water with you. Just have those bottles. First thing in the morning before you go out, tap water's fine. Just fill the bottle, put it in the car, and you're done. So you've got it when you want it. And if you're thinking why, when you're tired, you're really exhausted, you just gulp the water down. It reduces the fatigue or tiredness, so you feel better. And it also gets rid of stress, and you're more focused. And especially in the evenings when you have to work late, or you're thinking about property, or you're doing other things, thinking about the kids, having that hydration is just going to make you feel better. And it avoids confusion of hunger as well, because sometimes being thirsty masks hunger. So you think you want to eat where really you just want to drink and you're fine. The second one is 20 minutes of exercise six times a week. So the big reason for that is if you exercise, and I mean really not just go for a walk. Go for a walk if you're starting, if you can't. Sorry. Oh, but really get the heart rate up 20 minutes, because that's going to make you want to eat your healthy food. It's going to make you want to have your porridge for breakfast, have your fruit, have your nuts and seeds. So you want to build that desire. And the other reason is 2 of those workouts should be weights or resistance training, because as we get older, we lose muscle.
Muscle mass, yeah.
So definitely muscle mass. But what we can do is that we can make the muscles we have got stronger and bigger, just as fit and strong as someone who's 20 years old, even if we are in our 40s or 50s. It's possible. People are becoming stronger, so it can be done. And it also helps you cope better with stress and work and deadlines. And you feel like you can cope. You won't fall asleep on your desk. The fourth one is eating the right carbs. So eating the right carbs for a happy digestive system. So what happens is as we get older, I don't know about blokes, it might be similar, but women tend to get a stomach area after they're 35 years old. And you know, that big stomach, and they feel like they look pregnant, and it can be really painful. And so what we need to do is when we're younger, we're like, you know, our parents might have told us this, eat your brown bread, eat your whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, you'll be fine. After 35, we want to get gluten out of our diet as well. But the
Please,
problem,
sorry, Pipli. Please, can you mute your mic because we can hear what you're having for your tea, darlings. And although we love you, we just want to listen to Pipli at the minute. If you can mute your, that's fantastic. I need to see that at the beginning, actually, so that's great. Thank you. Sorry, Pipli. Carry on, darling.
no, it's fine. So with gluten, with the stomach, what happens is we want to eliminate gluten. But the problem is when we go to the shops, there's so many gluten-free products. But because they get rid of the gluten, they put a lot of crap in there, a lot of shitty stuff like sugar and syrup. So the easiest way to not have that in your body, because you don't want it, is eat things like whole grain rice cakes. Rather than your white rice, have brown rice, because brown rice is naturally gluten-free. Then there's quinoa, which is high in protein and naturally gluten-free as well. And you know, there's other things like chickpeas flour. Oats is a great example. So like porridge is a simple way to sort of, you know, eat that for breakfast. It doesn't take a lot of work, and you're keeping your gut health, like gut happy. And another thing which is brilliant for women, and I'm sure it'll help men as well, because it's, you know, across the board natural, is the fact that with women, our hormones, we have 3 hormones. You have testosterone, estrogen, and testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. And they vary in different levels at different times of the month. So if we try things like we don't eat a lot, we do intermittent fasting at the wrong time, we can become so grumpy and angry, and you know, and it's just not good for us, and we can start binge eating and then gaining weight. So that's why these carbs are just so special, in that we can be really nice and full, but also we're keeping the weight down. So we're keeping our body happy twice. The other thing is eating loads of fruit and veg and keeping red meat to a minimum, and try to reduce the amount of meat, because there's so much calories in meat. It's crazy. And a client of mine complained, and she goes to me, she goes, do you know what? I don't like cutting fruit and veg. And I'm sure there's loads of people out there that think it's boring and hard work. But you know what? The supermarkets don't tell us this, yeah, but they're doing us a massive, massive favor. And you go to the freezer section, you can get your onions cut and washed, fresh onions, no oil, nothing on them, ginger, garlic, okra, mushrooms, all these veg. All you have to do is chuck them in a cooking pot, and you've got your food. And it's really not that hard. And my client has lost weight. She's doing fantastically well. She's looking gorgeous. So it does work. Don't go for ready meals. There's so much salt and sugar in them. Too much marketing telling you it's good for you. It's not. They're not great. So another one is cook double. So if you're like, oh, I've got a bit of time today, but you know, don't always have that, cook double the amount and save your ice cream containers. And I know this sounds like, what? I can have ice cream, but or takeaways. But if you get really good quality containers from your takeaways, wash them and keep them in. We keep them in a box under the stairs. Yeah, all these containers. Put half the food before you serve it out in there, let it cool down, put it in the freezer. So when you know you're going to have a busy week, like tight deadlines, just grab it out. You know, TV dinners. So that's another suggestion.
Oh, sorry, there's somebody else not muted. I'm sure I can mute. Yeah, that's it.
Another thing, because I look at the gut, because you know, just having a great digestion, it's like a second brain. It can keep us so happy, emotionally happy, and we want to keep it full. Dairy is another product that makes our gut really unhappy. And so just try your best to cut down on cheese as much as you can. I'm not saying give up, but maybe have cheese once a week rather than every day. And another trick that my husband actually came up with this recipe, you get some hummus, put some nutritional yeast in there, and a bit of dairy-free milk, like, I don't know, oats milk, coconut milk, almond milk, whatever you prefer, a little bit in there if you want to change the texture. It becomes really cheesy, and that's just a really, really quick solution. So you can do stuff like that as well. Or nutritional yeast is a popular one. So you know, try your best to cut down on dairy. And if you want milk in your food, use plant-based milk as much as possible. Maybe 5 times a week, 6 times, and then occasionally, you know, treat yourself. We're getting older, we need to look after ourselves. Oily fish is great once a week, but you don't want to have it more than that because there's a lot of cholesterol. But have it once a week if you eat fish, because you know it's good for your skin, it's good for your hair, and also the skin of the fish is really, really healthy for strong nails, strong bones. So eat that as well. Don't be too worried about the fat. Add seeds and nuts to your salads to keep you nice and full. People are so scared of avocado, seeds and nuts. Like, oh, there's so much fat in there. But that's the fat you want. You don't want the fat like chocolates and biscuits and, you know, red meat, fat like that. That's not going to help you. Having fat keeps you nice and full, and it looks after your skin and your hair and your nails, and it makes you healthy. It's not going to gain weight. So, you know, have your avocados, have your seeds, have your nuts, add them to your salads to keep you full. Don't use salad as an excuse. Oh, I'm going to be hungry. You won't. Just add these things to it. You'll be fine. Fruits. This is a personal one, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, but eat fruit as a whole. Do not blend your fruit. Because sometimes people, they'll have oranges and put like 10 oranges. They'll blend it. And trust me, if someone gives you a glass and blends 10 oranges and puts it in a glass, you can drink it. It's not that hard. But if someone puts 10 oranges in front of you and starts peeling, you have to peel them and eat them bit by bit, you'll probably stop at 2 or 3 because you'll be full. So we don't want to get rid of the fiber wall. We don't want to break that down. We want to keep it intact because that will keep us full, and that will stop us getting diseases like diabetes and getting us gaining weight and having all the excess sugar and heart attacks. So yeah, so those are the main tips, really.
Is that all 10? Sorry, somebody can't get in the Zoom, so I'm just trying to. So is that all 10, Pipli, is it?
I've got more, but that's 10.
So it's all right. So for me, drinking 3 litres of water every day, right? I'm going to be stopping at every toilet. So any tips if you hardly drink any water on how you actually get into the routine of that? Because I know obviously it's really good for you, and I've done it before, and you know what I mean. But it's like just trying to think, right? I'm in the car, I've got a viewing, I've got another viewing. Like, when am I going to stop for the toilet? Do you know what I mean? So, any tips on that? More like sipping it, or
They say to sip water is really good, but you know how you know where all the Costa coffee shops are to get your Costa fix, yeah?
yeah.
Figure out where all the toilets are. So if Costa coffee shops have toilets, just be like, yeah, just see if you can just use theirs, really. Yeah, tips, like you said, sip water slowly when you're home. As soon as you get home, just drink loads of water then.
Like before you go to bed, and like first thing in the morning, so at least you're in the house, aren't you?
Yeah, so that's one good thing. And yeah, first thing in the morning, just have a big glass of water. But as you cut the caffeine out, you'll find that you hopefully won't want to go to the toilet as much because your body's more regulated.
Yeah, it's the Costa coffees that get me, to be honest. Costa coffees get me. Has anybody else started the health kick this year? I mean, I've cut out alcohol. Lee has. Right, Steve Brown, you're on Tenerife, right? You're not allowed on this bloody Zoom. Get off, get off. So, anybody else who's you know, got any health tips for us to help us, or they're doing something and it's working? So David's doing a juice blender, and do you know what it is? Like health and like eating healthy and keeping active. It is part of what we need to do to do more in our business, isn't it, really? So if you're going to be working for the next 5 years, like the clappers, and then all of a sudden you've got no health to enjoy because you haven't looked after yourself. And a lot of people are getting more aware about self-care now. So I know there's a few runners. Chris is there, where he done not Kilimanjaro, we're doing Everest Base Camp. Remember that one?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. That was fantastic. And I think having goals like that, and you run, don't you, Chris, as well?
Yeah, just something simple I saw the other year is I've run all my life anyway, never more than 10K. I can, but I get bored, I'll be honest with you. So I just set something as simple as, well, I'm in kilometers here, so it's less than miles. 365 kilometers in a year. It's 1 kilometer a day. It's pretty small. It sounds massive, but it's pretty small. But I suppose food wise, one thing I've learned as I've got older is I can't eat 2 pizzas and a portion of chips anymore. So to me, it's portion sizes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think portion sizes are a big one. Yeah, I don't know if this is right. I'm sure you'll be able to correct me if not. But I do a fair bit of sports. So protein I know is really good for getting you full. I feel like I eat a salad, I'm not full, but if I eat a salad and have protein, I'm full.
Yeah. So it's like eating the right things to make you full. And I think yeah, and I think it's habit as well, isn't it? When I go to the hub, it's like Costa Coffee's in my head, that's my destination, then it's a hub. But I think yeah, like I'm really going to start taking care of myself this year because I did no challenges last year, really. Well, I like to do at least one challenge, a mountain or something a year. So I've got a couple booked for this year. So does anybody else want to share anything else with us on that?
Can I just say one last thing? Sorry.
Yeah,
Just a suggestion. I say change one thing at a time. Like say
yeah.
yeah, so it's not.
That's a good idea actually because that's what I've done. I've cut out the alcohol for January and yeah, I haven't given up chocolate because there's no way I can do two things like that. Because you'll end up, it's like your own goals in your business and everything is if you give yourself too much to do, you're not going to achieve anything. So when I get into the little habit of that, then I'll start right going, I'll cut the chocolate down and this, that, and the other.
The sweet freedom chocolate sauce. You have sweet freedom chocolate sauce with tahini, and then you can have that on top of rice cakes, whole wheat rice cakes. That is really
Oh, I
nice.
think that would be nice actually. So, have you got any recipes that we could make? Anything quick that we can stick in a container, take it to work with us?
I've got salads. So
Oh, we
I've
need a
got a
sexy
salad
salad.
recipe.
Yeah, needs to be
I've got a
sexy,
sexy salad.
darling. Come on then.
But yeah, like Chris said, you can add protein to it. If you feel that it's not filling enough, absolutely add healthy protein like tofu. Chicken breast is really good as well. So yeah, that's fine. But it's the seeds and nuts that helps, I find. But yeah, it's personal choice. But yeah, sorry, Debbie, I'll send those two to you, the dressing and the salad that they can
That's
make.
great. And then I'll send it out now. I don't want a stampede. I've always wanted this sexy salad. But yeah, salads can be boring, but you can sexy them up a bit, can't you? And make them tasty. I like pomegranates sometimes on salads as well. I quite like pomegranates. But you can see the difference when you're buying at Aldi and Marks. Like this one's really red and this one's like a light pink. And you think, oh, I don't know what's going on there. But that's been really helpful. Pipli, can people get in touch if they need any tips or anything like that? Do you want to put your email address in the chat? Because I know you're doing a degree in health and fitness and everything, aren't you? You're not just like, it's not just a fad with you.
Yeah, so what I'm doing as well is so level 5, so it'll be the second year of the degree of health coaching qualification.
Wow.
So I'm actually going to see patients and they're going to assess me. So I have a proper license and qualification to train, well, coach people. So yeah.
So, and if people can follow you on Instagram and stuff like that for any tips as well, yeah,
Yeah, so
hands in there.
I'm on Facebook and I'm at Mystery Pipli on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So
Fantastic. By the way, I heard a little secret today about Facebook. Apparently, it's going to be like what's that other one? Twitter. Is it called X now? Where they're going to stop the do you know they're going to make it more just freedom of speech and all that. Oh my God, that's with Twitter, I mean, they get loads of crap on that, don't you? Just think, my God, if Facebook's going to be like that, fingers crossed it's not going to be, but that's what we've heard through the grapevine on that one. So hopefully not. It'll just be Instagram's part of Facebook as well. So I like LinkedIn. I think it's really professional, and I know I don't put me little horrible videos on there, but it's yeah, it's all good. Well, thank you very much, my lovely. We'll get people to get in touch with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate you coming on tonight. And now we'll get straight into the nitty gritty. Victoria Valentine, the landlord's friend, God help we haven't got many. But it's going to chat about, it was called the Renters Reform when the Conservatives, but now Labour saying it's a Renters' Rights Bill. Is that right, Victoria?
That's right. Yeah, renters' rights. It's just it's Renters Reform Mark II. This time it's personal. It's very similar to what we had before. To be honest, the third reading is on the 14th of January, so literally any day, and we might get a little bit more clarity then. I don't know whether I can screen share. Can I screen share?
You can only let me do. I'll just let you share my multiple. Yes, you can. You can share the screen.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Give me a shout if I get this wrong. Okay, if I can get on.
We're getting all techie, gang. We're getting all techie.
Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. So I was just going to quickly run through. I know I've been through this quite a few times before, and at the minute, as I say, nothing's really much different, but I will just run through it. So the overview.
Some people haven't seen this. It might be new people, so we need to know this. Victoria. Yeah.
Cool. So the main thing that everyone's talking about, of course, is Section 21, getting rid of Section 21, which is the no-fault eviction. That's what people are most worried about. And I have spoken before about what's going to happen when Section 21 goes, which basically is the expansion of the grounds on Section 8. So there will be lots of things that will be there to protect us landlords. So don't worry about it too much. They're going to ensure the possession grounds are fair to both parties. This is exactly how they've written it, by the way. Labour have written it like this, not me. So ensure possession grounds are fair to both parties. Now, what they mean by that is making sure that landlords can get properties back if we need to, whilst also protecting the tenant. They felt that Section 21 didn't protect the tenant because we could just ask for our properties back at any time for any given reason, and the tenant was just kicked out. I mean, anyone who's served a Section 21 probably knows it's not quite that easy, but nonetheless, so there'll be longer notice periods, things like rent arrears. I don't see how that's fair to us as landlords, but nonetheless, they're gonna say instead of 2 months rent arrears, we're looking at 3 months rent arrears with longer notice period. The positive for us is the new grounds of eviction to sell and eviction to move in or move in a family member. Now, those grounds currently don't exist. So I think as landlords, that's something we can all agree is definitely a positive step for us. Stronger protection against backdoor evictions. So that's essentially if landlords are not compliant, so if we don't have our paperwork right and we can't serve a Section 21 because we've cocked up, basically, what landlords tend to do is increase the rent again and again and again. And that's classed as kind of, backdoor eviction, forcing a tenant out. So they're going to stop that and say that all rent rises need to be through a Section 13 process, which is once every 12 months, rolling contract only, and fair market rent. So again, for us lot, we're all compliant, we're all brilliant landlords, so that shouldn't affect us too much. Once every 12 months seems fair to me. Introduce a new landlord ombudsman. So this doesn't exist yet. So if a tenant wants to make a complaint about a landlord, there will be an ombudsman that they can complain to. Again, probably affects the southerners a little bit more than us up north, but down in London, there are some pretty bad conditions for tenants, overcrowding or landlords not doing maintenance, not looking after properties, and the tenants will be able to complain about that, and there's some sort of redress there. The private rented sector database. Anyone who's experienced selective licensing will understand what this is. It's just having a database where we need to understand our legal obligations. I speak to people every single day, landlords, who don't understand their legal obligations. They haven't protected a deposit, they haven't got a gas safety certificate, they didn't realise that they needed an EPC. So this is a database where we will need to upload all of our compliance documents to prove that we are compliant before we're able to let that property, and the tenants will be able to check us out on there as well. so they will know that they are about to rent from a compliant landlord, a good landlord. Give tenants strengthened rights to request a pet. Yes, this is a good one for me. This is a good one for me. I mean, I used to have chickens coming into my kitchen, you know, I'm on a farm. So for me, I'm a big fan of tenants having pets. I think they're brilliant for mental health. I think they're brilliant just for people to engage. And a lot of landlords don't like it. Again, I understand. But it's always down to the pet owner rather than the pet, isn't it? Let's be honest. So that means that landlords, we can ask for pet insurance. We can kind of ask for evidence that those pets are insured, microchipped if need be. But it means that we can't deny somebody a reasonable request for a pet. The decent home standard already exists with social housing, doesn't exist yet in private rented sector. I think that's perfect. There's no problems there for any of us, I'm sure. Awab's law, which is the damp and mould, the poor little boy who died down in London as a result of damp and mould in a very small flat. Admittedly, it was during COVID when they couldn't get out, so that there was extenuating circumstances there, but nonetheless, it will be extended to private rented sector. So we can't just say it's tenant lifestyle. We do need to investigate and we do need to take action if necessary. That action might be as simple as educating your tenant, by the way, if it is tenant lifestyle, but we need to prove that we are investigating and taking action. Make it illegal for landlords to discriminate against tenants on benefits or tenants with children. Again, I think that's perfectly fair. That said, the number of applications per property at the minute is absolutely through the roof. So it doesn't mean you can't still choose your tenant, but we can't advertise and say no DSS or no pets or no kids. You know, we need to consider all applications. And the bidding wars. So it will be down in London at the moment, people can advertise a property and then somebody else can offer more, somebody else can offer more, and that becomes a bidding war. And a lot of landlords just take the highest price, which you understand why they would do that. But ultimately, if it's advertised at a price, that should be the rental price. It will be illegal to accept higher offers than that and entertain a bidding war. Strengthen local authority enforcement. Again, I'm not really sure how this is going to work, but this is basically the councils to investigate. So they will be able to slap fines on us. Whether that's going to come off the back of the database, the compliance database and the landlord database, I'm not sure. But obviously, if we haven't uploaded the documents or our documents have expired, it might be they can investigate and slap fines on non-compliant landlords. And the big one for me is this rent repayment orders. So if it's okay with you, Debbie, I was just going to talk a little bit about a rent repayment order and what it is.
Definitely, yeah.
So most people see rent repayment orders in the cases of, for example, an HMO licensing. So if you don't have your license, a rent repayment order means that rent is not lawfully due. So that means the tenant can claim up to 12 months rent back if you're not compliant. Now, there was a case, Rakusen and Jepson, where they said that so in a rent-to-rent situation, where a landlord rents to, say, a company or a person, and that person rents to a tenant, if I always say mesne tenant, I think it's actually pronounced mean, but it's MESNE. So the middle landlord, if they fail to comply, the tenant can get a rent repayment order. Now, initially, it was just against the person who they'd paid the rent to, which would be the rent to renter. They're actually going to extend that to the superior landlords, which I think is extremely unfair, because it isn't the superior landlord who's made the mistake. It's the middle landlord, if you like, that's made the mistake. So Rakusen Jepson said that was unfair, and you can't penalise a landlord who hasn't had the money. But unfortunately, the Labour have decided to backtrack on that and do a U-turn and say, no, you can actually claim from the homeowner landlord, who maybe isn't the one who's made the mistake. So rent repayment orders currently, if a tenant or local authority can prove beyond reasonable doubt that a landlord has made a mistake, effectively, then the landlord may have to pay 12 months. They're going to say that's up to 24 months now. So there's some quite hefty fines, which is why I sort of wanted to just touch on this.
Definitely,
These current offences. So if a landlord, if there's violence for getting access to your property, unlawful eviction, harassment of occupiers, failure to comply with an improvement notice, which is from the council, obviously, or a prohibition order, control or management of an unlicensed HMO, so that's the one that's most common. Control or management of an unlicensed house, which again is sort of selective licensing, or a breach of a banning order. That's currently the criteria for a rent repayment order. Now, the only one I really see ever is the unlicensed HMO. We do see quite a lot of that down in London as well. And as I say, the tenants, bearing in mind HMO, you might have 5 people living there. They can reclaim 12 months of rent from that landlord. So you can see how that figure can be quite high. Labour are extending that to 24 months, and it also for the superior landlord. So they can claim it from their direct landlord, the rent-to-renter, and potentially make a claim against the landlord who owns the property, who isn't the one who's made the mistake.
So does that mean that they're claiming twice then?
I think there's a possibility that they could claim twice, or it might just be that the fine is split. But whichever way you look at it, the owner landlord isn't going to be the one who's made the mistake. So
he's trusted the middle one who's given them a contract.
The middle one. So for anyone, correct, yeah. So I think for us as landlords, we need to make sure we scrutinise the rent-to-rent contracts. We need to make sure that whoever we enter into contracts with do the job properly. And I mean, you know more about this than me, I think, Debbie, don't you, with the rent-to-rent market? But yeah, so there's going to be some quite hefty fines there.
Victoria, I think this is going to, I really think this is going to put landlords, like I would never do a rent with somebody and be the landlord and let them look after my property. And I think this is and there's people offering mentorships on rent to rent and telling them what to do. And sometimes Bev Tyndale, I don't think she's on here tonight, but she got a mentorship, and do you know what it is? She got given the wrong advice, and she went, I had to put them right, because obviously she's educated on some of the stuff they were saying. And I just think the rent-to-rent market now, I just think that's definitely going to be one that's going to be landlords or property owners will definitely be thinking twice, I think, on that.
100%. And I speak to people frequently who say, well, you know, it's great, I've been approached by this company or this person, and it's easy because I'm just going to give them my property and then I'll just get guaranteed rent every month and I don't need to think about it. But ultimately the buck stops with us. You know, it's our property and we need to make sure. And sometimes those middlemen disappear as well. You know, things go wrong and they vanish. They take the money and they never pass it on and they vanish. And then the landlord, who doesn't even know who's living in his property, is suddenly going to get slapped with these fines. So it's just about doing your due diligence and making sure you know who you're working with, really. But more worryingly, the new offences. This is real doom and gloom, isn't it? Sorry, I didn't mean it to be this way.
No, do you know what it is? It's educating us, because it's things to watch out for, which I love this, and I know everybody in here will love it, because we'd rather know and learn from you to know what to sort of think about when we're doing property. There's always a good things. We do need Victoria to help us with all of by keeping us safe, really. So crack on. Victoria, I mean, tell how it is.
I mean, the new offences that Labour are looking to bring in, which I think is where it's possibly a little bit more relevant to us, is things like landlord redress. So this new redress scheme, the Ombudsman, the PRS database, you know, if we are found to be providing misleading information or knowingly, number 4 there, knowingly or recklessly misusing a possession ground, I mean, that's a big one, because people might do that. You know, if you want rid of a tenant, you might say, oh, do you know what? I'm going to say that I'm selling it and I'm going to use ground 2, sorry, 1A. I'm going to say I'm selling it and then not sell it. Once the tenant's out, I'll just relist it. You know, that could be a breach and you could then get a rent repayment. These things we just need to be aware of. We just need to be completely transparent and clued up on it, and be honest.
Not be the case, Victoria, if you were in a position where you were going to have to sell it, but then so you're not out to change your mind, you would have to sell it then, or?
So not necessarily. I mean, to be honest, it'll all come out in the wash. At the moment, what Labour are saying is you can serve a notice saying that you're going to sell, so you can evict the tenant based on the fact you're going to sell it. But currently, they're intimating that you would then not be allowed to re-let for 12 months.
Yeah.
So if circumstances change, you can re-let it, but not for 12 months. So you have to have given it a really good crack to try and sell the property. If you don't, if you say I'm going to sell it, evict the tenant based on that, and then relist it 2 months later, that could potentially be knowingly or recklessly misusing a possession ground, which means the tenant could make a claim against you, and there might also be a fine coming from the council. But at the minute, I think the database will kind of identify a lot of this. If we use a ground and then relist it, the database probably will flag that with the local authority, I would imagine.
Yeah, if you're going to be a repeat offender, sort of thing.
And then if you're a repeat offender, so repeat breaches, for example, then I mean, bear in mind a rent repayment order, the tenant needs to instigate that. That's not something someone's going to flag up, ring the tenant and say, did you know you could do this? It's something the tenant needs to be aware of. But that said, we need to be aware of it as well, because it's.
But then if you were in that position where you were going to sell and decided to change your mind, but then you weren't able to rent it for 12 months, you're going to get stung double the council tax as well, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the problems that we have is, if you, they're saying there's a housing crisis, they're saying there's a housing shortage, but then they're going to prevent us from housing somebody for 12 months, and leave it stood empty. It kind of doesn't make sense. But nonetheless, I think originally they said 24 months. And I think that Ben Beadle at the NRLA is really pushing hard to get some of these grounds, some of the restrictions on these grounds reduced, and that's one of them. So they're now saying 12 months. I mean, if you list a house for sale, typically, I think it's like a 12-week contract anyway, isn't it? You can't go anywhere else. So there's, that's 3 months gone. If you do get an offer on it, that might be 4, 5, 6 months for sale to go through. And then if it falls through, you're almost at the end of that period and you might want to relet. But nonetheless, it was just to be aware that these rent repayment orders are nasty, and the grounds under which we could be penalised are obviously being expanded. So continuing breaches, breach of restriction on letting, marketing, and as I say, false misleading information or misusing those grounds. So it was just to be aware of it.
Oh my God, definitely. Let's say we had a property now, like this week, where we wanted to evict the tenant to put it on the market to sell. Would it kick, and you had the sales sign up, would it kick in? Would that be, or is it we're waiting until it's actually official, or is it for stuff that's already on the market and they're busy evicting the tenant?
So I think the process will probably have to be, we decide we want to sell, we serve the notice to the tenant, and then presumably the tenant at the end of that notice period will vacate and relist the property, and it will probably start from then, I would think. I mean, some people do list a property when the tenant's in there, but that's always a risk anyway, because if the tenant doesn't vacate on time and you have to go to court, you might be looking at, well, heaven only knows. Again, we're not too bad up here. It's about 6 months start to finish, I think, if you have to go to court for a possession order. But down in London, I've seen it 18 months to get possession. I mean, the bailiff wait time, we had somebody apply for a bailiff at the end of November, and the date they've given them is 25th of May in London. So
is that because of the shortage of bailiffs, or is it the courts?
It's everything. There is a massive shortage of bailiffs, yeah. The courts take a long time anyway. We're seeing about 16 weeks in London. I think we're about 8 to 10 here in and around sort of Newcastle, northeast. So
there's more properties wanting to get repossessed as well. Properties back.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that one.
Is it because there's more landlords wanting to evict as well?
Well, yeah, and this is the problem with getting rid of Section 21, because Section 21 sort of circumnavigates court. You don't need a hearing, but once they get rid of that, we're going to need a hearing for every Section 8 potentially. So the strain on the courts is only going to get worse. So yeah, we're expecting those wait times to go up unless they do something pretty radical in the meanwhile, that they were talking about maybe having mediation to try and sort of avoid court. But you and I know, if you're having to go to court with a tenant, it's usually a tenant who's being obstructive, so I'm not sure they're going to agree to mediation. But a lot of this it's a bit of a wait and see. Unfortunately, we've got the outline of what's going to happen, but we need to the devil's in the detail. As I say, that the third reading is scheduled for 14th of January. That's a little timeline there now of where we're at, because I know everyone was panicking back end of last year. Quick, throw your notices in. Oh my God, it's gonna happen tomorrow. I mean, we're quite a long way off. We're at report stage at the moment. House of Commons third reading being next week. Is that the 14th? Next week?
Yeah. That's definitely.
We've got to go all the way through the House of Lords, the same, and then the final stages as well. So we're probably still looking at, I would say, certainly middle of the year, if not later, unless they do something radical. But yeah, so that was significantly more depressing than I wanted it to be, especially after the lovely talk about food. And I do have a glass of wine. I thought I daresn't take a drink, When...
No. I mean, we all want to be healthy, but not like to the point where we can't have a glass of wine. What would be the point of living? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Do you know what it is? There's some questions, and I would rather want to speak a little bit about goals, but I'd rather go through these questions, because do you know what it is? People on here are either landlords, they're looking to get into property, they're looking to become a landlord. And I really think we're a different breed from when I first become a landlord. And you had met all these landlords who were quite, more accidental landlords, really. Where you're saying no electric certificates, no ESTs, no gas certs. And this is quite scary, isn't it? And we bought a property we sourced it for a client. And when Liz went to the property, she had a chat with them. She went, right, I just need your EST. It was direct to vendor. The landlord put us in touch with the tenant. EST. So he went, I've never had an EST. I pay me rent cash. He had been in 20 years in this property. I pay me rent cash. I've got no CP12, but I know we're not allowed to use the fire because we're getting headaches, and the landlord went, just don't use the fire, right? And all of this, and I'm just like, what? They couldn't even put it on the market with the proper agent because they didn't have all the stuff. So we had to sort the stuff out, just find the tenant another property to live in, because it wasn't their fault at the end of the day. Because that property needed fully renovated, move them out, find them somewhere else, and then sell this property and get the EPC done, obviously, to sell it. And I just want, and everybody's like, Debbie, there's loads of landlords like that just haven't got a clue, but they just don't know what they don't know. And I think as a landlord, we should be made, even if we've got one or two properties, to do some sort of education to say, you need to check, this is what you need to be before you're a landlord,
Would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and why can't they could make money on that, charge a little bit just to do a test like you do for a driving test, to say that they know.
I mean, I think this landlord portal is going to be a little bit like that, because there'll be a checklist on there, so we'll need to upload these documents, and if we haven't uploaded these documents, then technically we would be prevented from letting that property. Now, I don't know how they're going to police that, because I'm pretty sure some landlords will still just let the properties. So I'm not sure entirely how they're going to keep up with who falls foul of providing the right documents. But it's a start. We've never had that before, and it is a start.
So is that going to be like a same costings like with selective licensing? It's going to be the landlord who's going to have to pay for that.
Yeah, it is. It is going to be the landlord, and unfortunately, it won't replace the selective licensing. Now, go figure. It's exactly the same. We're uploading the exact same documents.
It's going to be on top of the selective licensing.
It will be on top of selective licensing. Yeah.
Great.
Although in fairness, I think the costs are going to be quite low. So I think it's. And do you know what? I'm not even going to try and quote it, but it's less than £100 So that I did see some figures knocked around, but it was per property, which is similar to the licensing. To me, that seems unfair.
Yeah.
Purely it's the landlord that you should be checking, not necessarily the property. If it's a compliant landlord, then that's a good landlord. But they'll make you pay per property like they do with the licensing. So yes, unfortunately, another cost to landlords. What's the knock-on effect? We're going to increase the rents. Who's going to suffer? The tenants are going to suffer. So it's
like,
just round and round in circles, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And what about though? There's a lot of, I know in Sunderland, like Craig's been amazing. He's not like a normal person who works for the council. He's like thinks outside the box a bit. I'm like, I like you. You're a bit quirky. So anyway, that he's saying about, obviously we want all the properties and for our clients to be accredited. So they get like obviously they're an accredited landlord, they're a good landlord. Yes, they're on the system. What do you think about that? Because landlords have got two views. They're like, okay, is the council also just trying to register us to keep an eye on us and going to charge us for something? Or is this the real deal where we get some sort of benefits with being accredited and our properties being checked? So, do you know what I mean? I don't know.
He's not on here tonight, is he?
No, he's not. Come on, dish the dish, Lady B.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the landlord accreditation scheme that the council run because it is, to me, it's another thing we have to pay for to prove that we're a good landlord. And I know in Durham, when I was working in Durham, we paid this fee, and all it meant is if you had an empty property, they would help you fill it. But with respect, they're not always filling it with the sort of desirable tenants that we might have picked. And there's no shortage of tenants out there. You're not going to struggle to fill a property. So I don't see why you would pay for the council to list it. And ultimately, if you put one of these tenants in and we have to evict, the truth is, the council want to keep them in your property. They don't want a problem tenant. They want to keep them in your property. So they give them all the ammunition to fight, to argue against your notice. So again, a little bit doom and gloom, but I have experienced both sides of it. And for me, anything where the council's involved with finding tenants, I tend to find is a bit of a money making.
I've got to have eyes in the back of my head.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're all right. You're all right. I'm sure I'm going to ask a question.
This is not legal advice. This is just my opinion.
I'm going to ask a question. I know I'm going to get a positive answer. Everyone's going to go, yeah, I definitely want to be a landlord. So, and this is scaring a lot of people actually. So what does investigating mode look like, and who would we do it? So is there something, because I know obviously tenants can cause condensation by, I've went in and they're drying stuff on the radiators, they're not using, they've got all the vents taped up and, and all this sort of thing. So it's like, what does that look like? And how can we, because I know some people from the council don't know the difference. They go and they go, oh, that's right, and damp, or that's whatever, but it's condensation. So how can we keep ourselves safe as landlords? Because I know they've got these amazing and Anthony does it, Chris's brother.
I was just gonna say, Debbie, actually, which might help you, Victoria, as well, is I know, for example, Environment have a pack they send out. They send it out to landlords to say, do you know what condensation and mold is? And by the way, here's your one for your tenant. So they have a pack. I could try and find it, but basically they'll go in the property and say, listen, you don't really need anything, or you might need a small fan, but every door is shut. They've got dehumidifier. They've got, heating on. I found this recently with a few tenants who have moved from Nigeria. I've had friends from the Caribbean and places like that. When they move to England, the heating's about 35. Like, it's so hot in there.
I know.
And our houses can't cope with that.
No.
So there is actually a full it's not a document as such. It's got cartoons in it and things. It's very educational about, by the way, if you put all your soaking wet washing on the radiators, it will cause condensation. If you have an unvented dryer, it will cause condensation, and it kind of lets them know that's on them, and the landlord can't be held responsible. It's not a legal thing, obviously, but it's a pretty educational document designed for tenants. So
that's
I can
really
try and-
interesting.
Yeah,
Chris.
And
that would
most
be
of the
good.
councils do have something similar. So
Yeah.
bear in mind, there's penalties if we're not investigating, and those penalties come from the council. So, or sort of the local authorities. So what I tend to find is if you can use, I mean, that sounds like a great
By the way, the
resource
councils, I believe
but the
most councils in the
have their
UK,
own.
Yeah.
So
yeah, most
sometimes-
councils in the UK buy from Envirovent.
Yes, yeah. You
So
absolutely right.
not for my brother, I'll be honest, it's a commercial side, but they take the stickers off because I used to work for York Council. They use Envirovent stuff, the commercial
Right.
side, not my brother's franchise side. And they
Yeah.
pretty much apparently have copied and edited their document and sent it out with a council logo on. Some haven't even changed it, apparently.
Yeah.
Not that
It's
it
just
matters.
if you use
yeah.
the council's one, the one that's branded by the council, then if the
Yeah.
tenant complains to the council, we can say, well, we actually provided your own document. You know, we provided your document, but the emphasis is on us to not be dismissive and to investigate. So as long as we can prove, you know, if they complain about damp and mold and we go out and it's really obvious that it is tenant lifestyle. And I had this with one of my tenants. I had a property for 6 years. I've had 3 sets of tenants in there, no issues ever.
Yeah.
And then the tenant that's in there now immediately complained about damp and mold. And I went round and he collects tropical fish and he had fish tanks everywhere. And funnily enough, the damp and mold was right beside these fish tanks where there was a heating source and a water source. So, you know, but I investigated it, I recorded it. We sat on the sofa together and discussed what we could do together to satisfy these problems. He's moved the fish tanks. He's moved one of them closer to a door where there's actually a little bit of a draft. And funnily enough, it's all rectified itself. But things like fitting the extractor fans in bathrooms, tenants switch them off half the time. You can switch them off at an isolator because they don't like them. It makes it cold. It's noisy. Get one that's attached to the light cord so they can't switch it off. They pull the light cord, the fan comes on. It's about trying to sort of reduce the opportunities for the tenant's bad behaviour, if you like. But it's about investigating, and the emphasis is on us investigating. But you're absolutely right, providing a leaflet. So it's not coming from us. It's a professional company that's provided advice. And personally, I would be leaning towards the council guide, because then if they complain to the council, we can say, well, it was your guide that we discussed. I went out, we discussed it. And obviously sometimes we might have to put a loft, what's it called? Is it PIV? PIV unit?
PIV system. Yeah.
Sometimes we have to do this stuff, but you know, you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of pounds. There are some relatively cheap, you know, trickle vents on windows. Again, tenant might just close it, but you know, we can only do as much as we can do, and the emphasis is on proving that we've done that.
So do all councils have that information, what you can give to your tenants in Victoria?
Yes, I believe they do. Yeah, they should all have a. It's probably comes under sort of the environmental health department, but they will have a guide. Yeah.
And will it be different for different councils, Victoria? Or will it just be?
Yeah, I think it's different. It's all branded up for your council, but again, that works in your favour because you can, you know, it's very specific to if they get the council to come out and investigate. It's probably the people who wrote the guide that turn up.
So that's big one. And I've heard that they're actually ramping up on their environmental officers. So they're going to be ramping up and employing more environmental officers. We heard in a meeting. So is that to do with just, again, keeping an eye on your properties, making sure it's good landlords and stuff like that? If there's anything wrong, they're like straight on it, straight out. I don't know.
I would think so. I mean, I don't think they're going to have any option but to ramp up, you know, all these civil penalties that they're looking at enforcing, you know, to penalise all of us terrible landlords, that they need people to do that. And again, it makes them money, doesn't it, if they find things wrong? So it's just about uploading your documents, being compliant. I mean, funnily enough, you mentioned the EICR earlier, Debbie. EICR is, yes, you need it, but it doesn't form part of the Deregulation Act currently. So it's not actually a required document for a Section 21. So we don't know how the Deregulation Act is going to be affected when they get rid of Section 21, whether, you know, whether we just upload it once or whether we're going to need to do this. Because the ICR is once every 5 years. EPC every 10 years, CP12s every year. You know, we don't know whether all that's going to remain the same, or whether we're going to have to do it more frequently, or at the change of every tenant. Sometimes I heard somebody say change of every tenant. You know, all these things have got serious financial repercussions on us. So yeah.
So just need to keep a long-term tenant, really, I think, because you
find a good one
don't
at the
know.
beginning.
Yeah, you don't know whether they fiddle with the electrics or they fiddle with the gas or they've changed the gas hob, or you know, this depends. That's why you need a good letting agent. Just giving it a plug there, gang. A good letting agent to, you know, do an inventory and also spot these things and check your property.
Inspections, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Keep up
check
to
it.
date.
Yeah, and make sure and they're keeping an eye on your asset as well. So there is a couple of other questions. So that's about the mall, because that was like horrible about that little boy, wasn't it? That was a social housing
It
property,
was, yeah.
wasn't it?
It was.
Seems that the renters reform bill has high fines and penalties. Oh, thank you for sharing. That's all right. And I think Wayne put something on. Wayne, do you want to share what you put on? I can't find it.
Can do, yeah. No, I was just saying about Section 21 and HMOs, Victoria. I guess they're going to be particularly difficult. Surely it's going to be massive for the removal of Section 21 for HMOs, given that, you know, tenants' communication or kind of relationships quite easy to break down, and you've got perhaps there's no antisocial behavior necessarily or no arrears, but you just need one tenant that isn't particularly kind of conducive with the other 4 or 5 tenants to make it a pretty dismal place to live.
That's true. That is true. I mean, they were talking about, well, there's 2 different grounds on the proposed Section 8 grounds that are for antisocial behaviour. So they are looking at strengthening that a little bit. What the litmus test on that is going to be, I mean, currently antisocial behaviour, it's nigh on impossible to evict on antisocial behaviour unless it is really extreme. There's a new one in there for a rioting offence. And there's a new mandatory ground for antisocial behaviour, but again, it's very extreme. So yeah, I'm not too sure. If you've got, say, 5 people living there and 4 of them are happy and one of them's causing trouble, yeah, I'm not really sure what we're going to be able to do about that, to be honest. Currently, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that.
Probably means you've got one person living there.
That's why I don't really like, you know, HMOs. You know, it's not my cup of tea unless it's got a 5-year lease on it. You know what I mean? Guaranteed rent, they pay all the bills. That's the ideal one. That's the ideal one. So I know we've went over time. So what we'll do is we'll leave goals. I'll put something on social media about goals. What I wanted to do was, because we need to keep up to date with all of this legislation and stuff like that. So you do some trainings, don't you? And that goes towards our CPD as a landlord, doesn't it? So you do some trainings, Victoria, don't you? Like some training.
Yeah, well, currently I'm doing it. I mean, you're over in Sunderland, but I do quite a lot of training with Newcastle Council, so I'm hoping to get in with Sunderland City Council as well. I do sort of eviction workshops, which is sort of a full morning, all about how to kick your tenant out. Lovely, isn't it? But yeah, it goes towards the CPD training as well. So I've got some dates provisionally lined up for this first quarter, which I can share.
Yes, please.
Head, but I will have them. And then it'll be, but if there's other areas that people want me to come to, I'm more than happy to. Or if you want me just to come in and you know, to the agency or whatever, I can do that.
Yeah, and I think, well, we've got a room upstairs. We could get people there to go like a group together, because I think it's really important that we're, you know, and like just, you know, it's not a scare. I think this is the good opportunity for us, ladies and gents, because at the end of the day, this is going to scare off a lot of the accidental landlords that don't want to be landlord anymore because they've had it too easy. Now I've been landlord for 20 years, and obviously I've went with the changes, and you know, it's a proper profession, you know, being a landlord. And I think, yes, you do seem like they're gunning for you, but anything they bring it with will just back at them, and you know, build a portfolio, build it the right way, build a strong portfolio with the right tenants. Get the property done up to a high standard, put all of that cost into your property before you buy it, and then refinance. So there's loads of things that we can do, and just, you know, do your do a refurb properly as well. You know, get that boiler replaced and make sure that cash flow's coming in every month and get a good letting agent. Just saying.
There's loads of opportunities there still. I mean, you know, and it sounded awful. I know that was, as I say, that was very negative. But I'm a landlord and I am still buying properties. So, you know, it's one of those, isn't it? I'm still doing it myself. So I can honestly say there's still good money to be made in it.
Yes, we just need to do it right and be ahead of the game, everybody, and just bat everybody else out the way. So yeah, if you want any help about building a portfolio, anything like that, you know how the DM is. If you've loved this presentation, put something on social media, take some pics, because we want to help as many people as possible. I mean, we've got, you know, Wayne Gray, his time's really important. Finance, we've got Lee Gilder, you know, our solicitor, his time's really important. Victoria, mine's a little bit important. Your time's important as well, but if you're learning and we can help with that, landlords, because we're on a mission to educate landlords, because we want to create more homes, good homes for good tenants. So I think if you could share it a little bit, that would be really, really good, and put like a nice little comment on there as well. And if you've had a shit time, just don't bother putting a comment on. But I know you've had an amazing time, and this is why I knew there'd be loads of questions with Victoria, like, but we've got so much out of it and it's been absolutely amazing. So next month we're going to do supported living and social housing, and there's something exciting with that as well, but I'm not going to tell you at the minute. You're going to have to watch out for me boxing videos and I'll tell you all the juicy gossip. So that's in February. I'll put the date is an Eventbrite, but that's going to be a really good one, because we're working very, very closely with a lovely lady to do a support living and social housing, and she's going to want a lot of property sourced as well. So any sources that's coming on, that'll be really, really good as well. So Steve said, thank you, Victoria. Some golden nuggets in there. He's sunning it up in Tenerife, I think it is.
I
so
know he is. I wasn't expecting to see him there tonight.
Oh, you not miss a trick, this one, man. Honestly, you not miss a trick. But thank you to Wayne. Thank you to everybody for turning up tonight. Thank you to Victoria, the lovely Pipli who's went off. She sent us a sexy salad. So if anybody wants the sexy salad, I can either email it out or just message us and I'll WhatsApp it over. So yeah, thank you very much. So thanks, everybody. And I'll see you next month. If not before that, we've got London on the 21st. That's going to be a really belting one as well. So yeah, we've got London on the 21st, and then we're back in Sunderland in February, back on the Zoom on February, and Victoria's going to be popping on in any way, giving us a quick update, hopefully every month, just a quick 5 minutes on, you know, keeping us right. So you'll have your full team with you, my lovelies. So it's good night from her, him, you, me. Good night, everybody. Bye.